Hi there, I'm Lisa Fletcher, and you're in the stream. Today, are internet memes, viral and sometimes funny images and videos, taking over the U.S. presidential election and replacing substance with silliness? As always, our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is here looking out for your live feedback. Malika, we're talking memes, which can be fun, but they can also be distracting, and they're typically something that the social media community is more in tune to. How's our community weighing in on this today?
As is our community. And while most of them agree, not most, I'd say many of them agree that it can be distracting, they're pretty evenly split among people like Akash on Twitter, who says, on social networks, people can verify claims and contest them, which reduces the scope of undeserved favoritism or prejudice. But for those of you at home, we want you to join the conversation, so let us know what you think by using the hashtag AJStream.
And joining us at the table is Chris Geidner. He's the senior political reporter for the social news organization BuzzFeed. Chris, welcome to the stream.
Hey.
I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
There are a lot of ways you can be part of the stream's community. One of those is Google+. Sarah Kendzior, who writes about the internet and politics, and Nathan Jurgensen, who blogs at Cybergology, both added us to their circles, and now they're in the stream.
Hi, I'm Hannah Rosen, author of The End of Men, and I'm in the stream.
I laugh at that darn thing every time I see it. That's like the 50th time I've seen it. That's a meme. Specifically, the Nyan Cat meme, one of the most popular of all time, with more than 85 million, yes, I said million, views. And then there are dozens of spin-offs, too. So what is a meme? Well, Wikipedia says it's an idea that spreads from person to person within a culture. Memes are also kind of like genes in that they self-replicate, mutate, and respond to selective pressures. Now, today we're talking about internet memes, and those are typically videos or images inspired by some minute detail that morphs and repeats as users add their own ideas. The Nyan Cat started simply before it became this sensation that it is today. KnowYourMeme.com explains.
Nyan Cat, also known as Pop-Tart Cat, is an 8-bit animation depicting a cat with the body of a cherry Pop-Tart flying through outer space. Since its creation, it has grown immensely popular. But what gave it life? My research shows that the Pop-Tart Cat animation was posted on the daily comic site LOLcomics. The animated GIF was shared and reblogged, but it took the combination of something else to fully transform it into the phenomenon we know today. On April 5th, 2011, YouTuber Sarah June posted a video titled Nyan Cat using the Pop-Tart Cat animation set to a well-known Japanese Vocaloid song, Nyan 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 Nyan, by Japanese artist Danny Well P looping in the background. The video gained over 1 million views in the first 2 weeks. On April 10th, Nyan Cat was picked up by several major internet sources. Soon after, dozens of remixes, covers, parodies, and even games sprang up.
Seriously. Okay, so internet memes are fun, but they're often applied to serious subjects like politics. U.S. President Barack Obama has been called the first meme president based on an iconic photo turned print turned meme. During the 2012 election, we're seeing no shortage of memes. There was Invisible Obama, a reference to actor Clint Eastwood's speech at the Republican National Convention featuring a monologue with an empty chair. Then there was Big Bird, taken from a debate when Mitt Romney said he would cut government funding to public television, followed by Binders Full of Women, linked to Romney's comments about wanting to increase the numbers of women serving in top government positions. Now, all of these examples went viral, drowning out much of what was actually being said by the candidates and leaving many to suggest that memes simply obscure the real issues. But can they convey something more significant? Joining us now to discuss this via Skype is Amanda Hess. She tackled this issue in a piece for the Poynter Institute, an organization that helps educate journalists and media leaders. Amanda, in your piece, you talked about memes through history. Now, the internet hasn't been around all that long, so put this in a pre-digital context for us.
Sure. Well, the spirit behind memes has always been a part of political reporting, and it's really shifted based on the mode of technology. So when people were getting all of their news from newspapers, you would see political cartoons that would skewer a very minute part of a candidate's physical representation or a quote that they had said. And then when the radio and TV sort of became the dominant mode that people were following campaigns through, you'd see stuff like the first televised debate between Nixon and Kennedy, where there was this big meme that lasted for years and years that Nixon was a non-viable candidate because he looked real weird. But only more recently has the internet sort of allowed memes like that to leave the hands of the media. You didn't have to own a newspaper or be on television to create a meme anymore, and that's what's really been ramped up this time around. Now you're seeing that sort of shift. So people who are working in more traditional media are going to sort of grassroots internet communities to inform their own coverage.
Chris, you're a political journalist. Is there a problem with memes in political journalism?
I mean, I think part of what Amanda just explained is that people paying attention to politics need a way to simplify down what's being discussed, need a way to be able to express what they're thinking about an issue in a soundbite, just like politicians do, because we don't all have the half hour, 45 minutes, hour to go on and explain at detail what we're thinking about something. And so when somebody like Mitt Romney says that he wants to cut funding for Big Bird and Jim Lehrer, then that is something that although the Big Bird meme can be simplified and can be mocked and can be the subject of derision for oversimplifying things, it's also a very simple way of expressing a real concern that Democrats have expressed about Mitt Romney's candidacy throughout the past year.
But then you have to ask the question, does that lead to relevant discussion? Or does it just lead to, I mean, I was watching Twitter that night and all of a sudden there were all these, Big Bird avatars and silliness about Big Bird really taking away from the serious debate, which should have been, should public dollars be funding public television or not? And there was a real issue to be discussed there, and I didn't see that coming up on TweetDeck that night.
Well,
it was just a mockery.
I don't think that it's exactly a mockery. I mean, I think that people who were sharing those things were saying, no, I disagree with you. And I think that just like campaign ads that have become very famous for making a very stark imagery, whether it be Dukakis in a tank, whether it be the girl with the nuclear explosion. I mean, all of these sorts of things are putting a simple image or a simple idea as representative of a larger debate. And that's always been a part of our politics.
Well, Nathan, I want to go to you in Google+. You've said in a piece recently that memes inject authenticity into a political process that's seen as overperformed. There's members of our community that agree with you. There's a tweet here from Talal who says, memes do have more effect on people who have little knowledge of politics. So, Nathan, I'd like your thoughts on whether or not these memes are a way to educate people about the bigger issues, and then if it's up to them to then go find out more about what Big Bird Romney means.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that perspective. And I do want to, picking up with what Chris was saying, differentiate between, let's say, the Dukakis tank incident or the 47% that Mitt Romney had mentioned and how that went viral versus, I think, what a lot of us are talking about and interested in with memes this election process, which is things like Big Bird and binders, which to me look more like Nyan Cat. And part of that, I think, is because it's hard to put a definition on why Nyan Cat is popular, why Big Bird went popular. I don't think it's just because people are so interested in the funding of PBS. Part of the reason why I think those went so viral is because they resist easy definition, and things are more shareable when we can get involved with them. These top-down messages that the campaigns are giving us, they're not very shareable. They're not very memeable because all we can do is repeat them. But with the memes that we've seen that have gone popular this season are things that we can kind of play with. To me, it's more like the Nyan Cat. It's more like the pepper spraying cop, right, which changed form all the time as it was shared. So I think that is a big part of it. And also what the person from Twitter also mentioned, what we're doing is, with these memes, is trying to find a moment of authenticity in this campaign. These campaigns are kind of a joke in how much of a performance they are. These debates aren't debates, they're mini speeches. And when a candidate makes a gaffe, that's a quick little moment of authenticity, and we jump on that in order to get retweets, in order to get more likes, or in BuzzFeed's case, to get more page views.
But Amanda, is a gaffe what we should be, as a civil society who's about to elect another president of the United States, focused on? I mean, do these memes distract from the real issues?
I think it depends on how the media covers them. I think one thing that's come out of this election is that the media has really very quickly realized that one of its roles in relationship to memes is to add context to them and to report them out, figure out what's true about them and what is just sort of like a feeling that people have. I feel like a lot of memes are based on a sort of gut feeling that people have about candidates. You saw that with Binders Full of Women, where a lot of progressive feminists really latched onto that phrase because they saw it as Mitt Romney trying to discuss feminist issues, but doing it really poorly and sounding sort of awkward. And the Binders Full of Women phrase really sounds kind of serial killery, like he's like trapping these women in his binder. However, the issue that he was talking about is a really serious one, which is that it's important to recruit women into upper positions in the government. So at first, that was sort of depressing to me that feminists were sort of missing the forest for the trees. But then you saw the media sort of come in and add some context. You saw local Massachusetts reporters discussing the incident of Romney sort of hiring women and how true his story was. And I think that's something that's really important about memes, is that they really are allowed to grow in this sort of 24-hour constant news cycle that we have on TV and online. And that means that, you know, over the course of the week that the meme plays out, you can really put a lot of knowledge in there and sort of add light to subjects like the representation of women in politics that we never would have talked about before.
When there are drawbacks to when something does take off like that, and I think Amanda talked about the one aspect of the Binders Full of Women, which was that the larger part about having greater representation of women within his government was actually a positive thing. And I heard some people who were talking about, like, we actually missed one of the good things that Mitt Romney said, somebody from the left saying. But then there was the other part of that was hard to get through, which was Boston reporters were talking about the fact that actually it wasn't Mitt Romney who asked for this binder. It was an organization that had been formed before the election that wanted to encourage greater representation of women in higher levels of government and was planning on giving this binder to whoever won, whether or not Mitt Romney had won or Shannon O'Brien had won. And so I think there is that added difficulty that a meme can sort of overtake the ability to change that meme, because people decided they wanted to talk about the Binders Full of Women, and if the Binders Full of Women weren't actually a Mitt Romney idea, that would have made the meme much less effective.
Well, I think Tom here on Twitter would agree with you. He says memes might seem a tad flippant, but they're helping spread awareness of the big election issues to ordinary people. But Sarah, I want to go to you with this next tweet. John says, unfortunately, U.S. elections come down to sound bites and picking the lesser of two evils instead of reading their stance on the issues. And Sarah, of course, in our Google Plus Hangout, you recently wrote a piece for Al Jazeera's website in which you said memes affirm that a serious conversation is something we stopped having a long time ago. Would you agree with John here on Twitter?
Yeah, to an extent. I think that memes aren't exactly a problem in and of themselves, but they're a symptom of this broader problem, which is a lack of serious analytical conversation about political issues. Instead of doing that, we have memes, and I think that that's rooted in a kind of cynicism and a sense of futility that Americans increasingly have about the political process. I think that the system itself is viewed as flawed, and to sort of engage with that system seriously is something that people find kind of laughable. So instead you get these kind of, cynical, humorous memes that are spread. However, I think that Amanda and others have brought up a good point, which is that sometimes these memes, which are comical, you know, like Binders of Women, which was a gaffe by Romney, go on to express frustration that people are feeling about an issue kind of unrelated to the gaffe or the meme itself. Like, I think Binders Full of Women ended up being kind of a stand-in for how people feel about the Republican Party's treatment of women, whether it's related to Romney or not.
Well, you know, during the vice presidential debate, Vice President Joe Biden laughed a lot. So laughing Joe Biden quickly became a meme, and the Republican Party took the opportunity to put out this ad.
It's never too early to speak out for our values. They keep misquoting him, but let me tell you about the Mitt Romney I know. It says, don't raise taxes on small businesses because they're our job creators. When we show that we're cutting our own defense,
Vice President Biden.
It's incredible.
Look, you both saw Benjamin Netanyahu hold up that picture of a bomb with a red line.
So, Nathan, do these types of efforts where campaigns or parties latch on to memes work?
I think that's a really important point, that the campaigns have a good degree of power on what kinds of memes eventually go viral, or if not the campaigns, other people that have more power than just the average web user. It's tempting to say that memes are the crowd speaking for itself, and this is some authentic grassroots sort of speech. But we know that websites like BuzzFeed or journalists who have a lot of Twitter followers, and then the campaigns themselves have a lot of influence on what goes viral, what sort of dominates the attention economy that is social media. So I think it's smart for the campaigns to get involved in this meme process. We know campaigns are buying hashtags on Twitter so that the hashtag becomes promoted, though there's famous examples of where that backfired when Romney's campaign bought a hashtag asking, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And Twitter responded, yes. That didn't really work out for them. But it is interesting to look at how maybe the meme starts kind of from the grassroots, and then it's propagated by influential websites or people, and then it kind of goes back into Facebook streams for people to like or repost. And I think that flowing back and forth between the top-down and bottom-up traditional media and campaigns versus social media, I think is really interesting to watch how that plays out.
Amanda, I know you want to get in on this. Just one second, Chris. Amanda, I saw you nodding your head there quite a bit.
Yeah, I would say that I think when campaigns pick up memes, they really end up sort of pushing them to a different audience than online users are accessing. So one thing that we saw in this election was right-wing bloggers pick up on this cherry-picked quote from Barack Obama where he was speaking to a group of supporters and he said, "You didn't build that." He was using it in the context of reminding everyone that that rebuilding America is a team effort. When right-wing bloggers picked it up, they took it as an indictment of sort of small business owners. When they picked that up, they sort of went over the heads of traditional media who were not really following that story because they thought it was a non-issue. But the Romney campaign picked it up, and they ended up spinning it into the mantra of the Republican National Convention, which was, "We built it." Everyone who was watching the Republican National Convention, I don't think they were necessarily aware of the sort of grassroots campaign that was necessary to make that the big push for that campaign. And I think that's one of the really interesting things about memes, and something that doesn't really bother me too much about them, which is people who are creating memes and are really obsessively following them are a really specific community of people who are reading online journalism. Most people, are not doing that. So if someone is really invested in the Binders Full of Women meme, and then online reporters really follow that meme and they sort of add more context to it, they're really speaking to this really niche group of people who are A, really plugged in online, and B, have already made up their minds. We know from studies that undecided voters are just less plugged in than decided voters are. But with this new news cycle, we really need to sort of find a way to continue this conversation with people who are really invested in the election, already know who they're voting for, and so we're looking for more context, a little bit of political sport, and some fun, which is maybe not the most issues-driven way
Nathan,
to
I know
report
that
on the
Nathan in our Google
campaigns.
Plus Hangout wants to get in here, but before you do, Nathan, there's a tweet here from Dur Blunthan who says, "Memes are there to remind us how badly the elections are actually rigged and to not take them too seriously." But Nathan, before you actually comment on that, listen to this video comment.
My name is Austin in Philadelphia. I think memes have the potential to break through the silence of the corporate media or the two dominant political parties on the big issues of our day. Issues like war and peace, like jobs, or climate change. But instead, memes most often are used as part of political slapstick comedy between the two candidates. And that's a real missed opportunity, not just for our political debate, but for the future of our country and our world.
So Nathan, even when the campaigns do pick up on these memes, are they missing the points behind them and going just for the slapstick?
Well, I think while I agree with the person in the video, the fact that that point is being made on the show almost refutes its own point. We're talking about these pretty weighty issues right now because of the silliness of memes. So I think it's really important to talk about the performativity, the inauthenticity of our political system and our process, and we're having that conversation because of these silly memes. So I think the idea that memes are just silly is probably the least interesting thing we can say about memes. I would rather look at how memes say something about the person who's sharing it. I think we get a little bit too caught up in the actual content of the meme, thinking that Big Bird is about funding for PBS, and I don't think that's quite right. I think people, and this is to agree with what Amanda said, but to add something else to it, while the people most creating these memes are well-connected journalists, these memes are being distributed across, let's say, Facebook, well beyond the hyper-politically connected. Right. And I think that's a really important point. Why are people sharing these things on Facebook who are not very tech savvy?
All right, I'm going to hold you there, Nathan. Chris, we've got less than a minute left. I want to have you weigh in for the last.
Yeah, I think what Nathan was just saying is really one of the questions, and also the idea that when a media site like BuzzFeed picks up on a meme, the odds are it's already going. Yeah. I mean, regardless of where it is, and so I think that Nathan was right that this idea of the back and forth when a meme is starting to pick up steam on Twitter, and then BuzzFeed puts out a post which is then easily shareable on Facebook, is how like a meme can make the leap from Twitter to Facebook. I'm
going to stop you there, but in the post show, I want you to talk about the shelf life of a meme. So we're going to pick up all of this in a few minutes, but first, Malika with a few other leads we're following.
A staffer for a Republican congressional candidate resigned after tweeting false information about Hurricane Sandy's destruction. During the storm's height, Comfortably Smug claimed that the New York Stock Exchange was flooded and was retweeted hundreds of times. He also tweeted that the city's electric company was shutting down all power in Manhattan. Well, netizens and authorities quickly refuted his posts, but it was a contributor to the social news site BuzzFeed who revealed the tweeter, identifying him as Shashank Tripathi, a hedge fund analyst and campaign manager for a New York congressional candidate. Well, after going silent for hours, Smug eventually tweeted, "I wish to offer the people of New York a sincere, humble, and unconditional apology for what he called irresponsible and inaccurate tweets." Reaction online was skeptical, as Randall sums up, "Were you going to apologize if you weren't busted?" Our next leads from Germany, where asylum seekers are protesting what they say is unfair treatment using the hashtag #RefugeeCamp. With more than 27,000 mentions, demonstrators are protesting against a lack of freedom of movement and being banned from taking jobs. They've also camped out in Berlin public spaces for almost a month. Well, police enter the encampments nightly, removing tents, and as this video shows, citizen journalists are documenting that effort and spreading the word. We'll continue to follow that story, so let us know what you think. Send us a message on Google Plus by heading to the link at the bottom of your screen. Lisa?
All right, the Post Show is next. It's streamed at aljazeera.com. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss the recent wave of Tibetan self-immolations with Lobsang Sangay, the leader of the Tibetan government in exile. Till then, see you online. Welcome to the Stream's online post show. We're going to continue our conversation. We're talking about internet memes and their relevance or lack of relevance in this U.S. election year. And Chris Geidner, I want to pick up with you. You know, we were talking about how a meme goes from place to place and it's added to, and it goes from maybe Twitter to Facebook. What's the shelf life of a meme?
I mean, I think that it really depends, is the answer, as with most things on the internet. The great thing about a meme is that it is what people want to talk about on the internet. The bad thing about that means that it can last for 5 minutes, or it can last for 2 weeks, or with your favorite Pop-Tart cat years. I mean, a good example is the fact that Big Bird was all that you saw for exactly until the moment that Joe Biden got on stage and started smiling and laughing. And it was the vice presidential debate, so it didn't have quite the staying power. But then the next thing was the binders full of women, as opposed to earlier in the election cycle, during the Republican National Convention. You had mentioned at the top of the show the empty chair when Clint Eastwood gave his rather unusual convention speech, and that meme and that began right in the as the speech was still going on, because it went on for a rather long time, when there was nothing to replace it, because the Republican convention ended and the Democratic convention hadn't begun. That enabled it to have a longer shelf life, because there was this group of really engaged people on both sides of the issue. I mean, that's one of the things with political memes that shows that's when they really break through, is when both sides like it. Yeah. If you noted, the Clint Eastwood in the chair was actually used by both sides. It was used in a mocking Obama way, the empty hope chair poster that people supporting the Republican side put up, but then it was also the Obama poster, the Obama Facebook picture of this seat is taken, with him at the cabinet
like 50,000
table.
times, didn't it?
I mean, so when a political meme has the ability for the same exact action to be used by both sides, that increases the staying power of it as well.
Well, Sarah, in our Google Plus Hangout, I want to bring you in here. A lot of our community members are picking up on the humor aspect of this. Hasib says, most meme pics tend to swing the younger population. With a little humor, it attracts an agreement among uneducated voters. And Dr. Scorpio says, we shouldn't just dwell on the comedy of memes, but the cultural integration and influence. Now, you're an independent researcher in Missouri. Do these have cultural influence beyond the Capitol?
Well, I think first we need to kind of make a better, distinguish better what kind of audience is using memes and participating in the creation and circulation of memes, because it's actually a lot more limited than I think we've been saying. You know, Chris just said that memes reflect what people on the internet are talking about, but the number of people on the internet is not necessarily that high. Like in Missouri, where I am, 23% of people don't have regular internet access, and you can see enormous lines every day in public libraries for people trying to just get that half hour of internet time. And if someone is struggling to get a half hour of internet time, they don't have the time to track the formation of a meme, which is a very fast-moving phenomenon, or generally to engage in these kind of political discussions. And so I think a lot of the issues that are affecting those populations, less educated, less tech-savvy, poorer populations, one, aren't reflected in memes themselves, which tend to be funny and tend to kind of reflect things about pop culture, or gender, or other topics that you can be pretty creative about. You can get a lot of mileage out of them. But also those people don't necessarily have as much of a voice. And when the mainstream media is structuring political discussion around memes, then that just kind of amplifies that lack of participation. I think the person also who tweeted, who brought up the fact that people circulating memes tend to be younger. I mean, that's another thing. Excuse me. I think even among more educated parts of the population, more tech-savvy parts, older internet users tend to not be represented as well in the kind of groups that are really avid circulators and creators of memes.
So Amanda, does that kind of make it a hard argument then to sell that the idea of memes is opening up the discussion to a broader audience? Because, I mean, listening to Sarah, it sounds like it's going from one small group to another elitist group, essentially.
I think it really depends on the meme and how the media approaches it. Like, I think it's really important for certain groups of the media to be covering the online community, and, you know, hopefully there are enough funded sources to be covering every community, but we know that that's not exactly true. I would say, though, that I think the media, because we're so sort of obsessed with ourselves and we are really plugged in online, we're really interested in this idea of memes sort of like propelling the conversation, and we're, you know, on this show we're covering it from this sort of lofty meta view to sort of understand what that is. However, I don't think that means that memes are driving the larger political conversation in a terribly significant way. I think we do cover memes, but I think for the most part the campaigns and the campaign cycle are driving what we're covering, whether we're online or reporting in newspapers or on TV. We're just really interested in it because it's a new thing, and I think it's only going to gain traction, but I don't think it's necessarily overwhelming the general coverage of the election.
Chris?
I mean, the one thing that I would say to Sarah's point is that, I mean, during the 2008 campaign, there was another form of meme that was spread, and it was mainly spread through email forwards about the question of the president's birthplace. I mean, that was definitely a meme of the 2008 election that was not spread in the same way that we're talking about here today. But I mean, I know the number of emails I got from my grandmother. And I mean, to the point of saying, like, is this true, Chris? This is the third time I've gotten this email today. I can't believe that this would be the case. He's a U.S. senator. I mean, and so I think that while the mode of delivery has changed, I mean, going back to Amanda's original point, I think that memes are, while internet memes are spread in this Twitter, Facebook way, that doesn't mean that Big Bird wasn't being spread via email as well.
Right.
And there are definitely audiences that get things. And let's remember that the rights meme of the Obama comment about "you didn't build that" and the Big Bird meme both made it into official campaign situations because, as was noted, the Republican National Convention was literally built around "we built it," and the Obama campaign ran an advertisement about Big Bird.
Well,
and
one
so,
we probably will not see being made into the official campaigns is this one that's just surfaced not too long ago. This is "Tired of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney."
I'm tired of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
That's why you're crying? Oh, it'll be over soon, Abby.
This, as of the moment, has about 2,300 hits, but of course that number, I'm sure, is set to rise. Is this going to be the next meme?
I think this was whether it was the feeling of most Americans this morning, or at least the half Jekyll Hyde feeling of a lot of journalists covering the election. Waking up, I was saying, when I woke up this morning and looked on my computer screen and saw Wednesday there and realized, oh, that's Wednesday with less than a week.
Yeah. Yay.
That I think that face captured a lot of people's feelings.
Well, on that note, we're going to end our program. Chris Geidner, Amanda Haas, Nathan Jurgensen, and Sarah Kendzior. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a recent wave of Tibetan self-immolations with Lobsang Sangay, the leader of the Tibetan government in exile. So tweet us questions for him. And until then, we'll see you online.